Good morning, Cornell Johnston. Good evening, good afternoon, whatever it might be for you. Been a lot going on since I did a YouTube video. This week, especially, several things happened that are of interest and our people should know about and understand. And I'm going to try to break down a couple of these things. One thing was the President administration, the Trump administration, is pushing the deportation of 50,000 Haitian immigrants in the country. And these Haitian immigrants, they're not illegal immigrants. They come here under a protective status, temporary protective status, TPS is what they are. And that means they came here fleeing maybe a genocidal or health crisis in their country, and have been given temporary asylum in the United States. And they shouldn't be deported back to their country until, for whatever reason, they left their country, that has been resolved to their satisfaction. And they have had children here. And so this means that their children are American citizens, and deporting them at this point in time would break up their families. And but the government is completely willing to do so. They don't care about whether they committed a crime or not. They don't care about them being here legally or not. They're just ready to kick them out, and that's it. But you see, they're conditionalizing the deportation of mestizos in this country. And that brings me to another point. I didn't really mean to get too deep into this because I wanted to talk about the health care bill and the budget, and I'm going to jump to that pretty quick. But let me say this about this, because it is important that we are treated differently than anyone else in the United States, and how unfair that is for what we contributed to this country. Trump admitted himself, we fought in every war, and he knows the contribution black people made in building this country, because I've seen him on a History Channel documentary where he was extolling the accomplishments of men like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, Cornelius Vanderbilt, and J.P. Morgan. And these guys were mega industrialists, and Rockefeller with Standard Oil, J.P. Morgan, the financier, the railroads, also Morgan and Vanderbilt, and then the steel magnate Andrew Carnegie, who, by the way, is from the same country as Donald Trump originally, Scotland, and I know that's his hero. So, and all that was financed with the original American wealth source and origin of the original American wealth gap, and that was the enslavement of black people in the United States. And he also made the comment about us fighting in every war that America has fought in, and we did. In fact, America would not exist in the same sense it exists today, land mass, wealth, or anything, if it were not for the contributions of black people, our enslavement and our exploitation. And at this date in history, for that exploitation to be continued and that persecution to be continued by a presidential administration is sinful in the worst sort of way. And I'll hopefully, if I have time, I'll come back to that. If I don't have time, I intend on doing today a part A and a part B. And let me stop here and ask everyone, please do something for me. hit the subscribe button, subscribe, and then there's a bell where if you want to receive notifications, then you can hit that bell and you'll get notifications every time I make a video. And the reason why I encourage people to watch my videos is because I'm almost 70 years old and I've lived through a lot of history. I've been studying history on and off for around 40 years. I have a bachelor's of science degree in criminal justice administration and political science, and I study economics too. And when you bring those disciplines together, you can get an understanding, especially for black folk in the United States, of what you need to consider if you're going to make a wise decision, and how not to be duped and tricked and waste your political capital and your vote and your effort on linear issues that do you no good. That we need to focus on everything from the perspective of how it affects black people, especially considering the situation that we're in today. Now, and I'm going to explain the health care bill and the budget and exactly what that means and how that came about. I'm only going to take maybe less than 40 minutes for each video. So let's get started. There's been a lot of talk, and several people have asked me to speak on this about interracial relationships and interracial marriages in the United States. Well, every people in the world, besides black people, especially in America, practices some form of racial unity. Now, racial unity isn't the same as racial bigotry. Yeah, it's like if you go out and you play any sport, basketball, football, baseball, what have you, everybody's going to have a team. Okay. Now, if everybody else is playing like as a team, and we are trying to continuously play as individuals and even pass the ball to people on the other team, hoping for a reward, we will never get ahead in the game. And we've been doing that, and for that reason, we remain in the United States after 400 years, and in the Western Hemisphere, after 511 years of slavery, we are still the poorest people, the most exploited people, the most abused of people, and we are on the bottom because we have not learned to play as a team. And for example, everyone listening has at one time or another went, say, to an Asian store and spent their hard-earned money. Now, there are different kinds of Asians. Of course, you got Orientals, Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, and so on. And you also have the Indians who are from Asia. Well, if you knew about the Indians and the racism inherent to India toward black people, you could not in good conscience spend a dime of your hard-earned money with an Indian. You know, the Indian Brahmin Hindu religion is the only religion in the world that was conceived and formed and philosophized to support racism, period. Anti-black racism is in their Bible. That you all have heard about karma. Few have heard about Dharma. You've heard about Hindus. Few have heard about Brahmins. It's all relative to a caste system that is anti-black. At one time, India was known as Eastern Ethiopia. It was a colony of of Ethiopia, an African country. Well, when the European people came, after it being a colony of an African country for over 4,000 years, when European people came to India and took control of India, then India, the Europeans who got control of India, they decided that they were going to create a caste system that would keep them in control. And the caste system said, if you are of an upper class, you can be like politicians, doctors, lawyers, etc. If you're in the next class down, you could be policemen, soldiers, craftsmen, etc. If you were in the class below them, then you could take like lower status jobs, like maybe taxi drivers or something like that. In the lowermost class, and this was all determined by the color of your skin, the people who still looked the most African in appearance, the darkest people, they were known as untouchables. And they got the worst jobs. You could be a garbage man or you could be a honey dipper. They didn't have a plumbing system as such to dispose of their waste, so people had to come and scoop the defecation out in buckets, carry it on their head until it was out of town, and then dump it. Only those people that done those jobs were black or dark-skinned Indians. That's why they called them untouchables, because they smelled bad. You couldn't get that smell off you. And even the church, the temples, didn't allow dark-skinned Indians into the temples to worship. In fact, they considered them so tainted and unclean that they built a wall around the temples, enough away from the temples that these people's shadow would not even touch the temples. So it would defame the temples if it touched the temples. And that goes on to and so they had to pray outside this wall. Now, think that you're a member of a religion, but you can't go into church. You got to pray outside the wall because you're black, and your job is carrying defecation and garbage all day, and that is life. The difference between a class system, like they have in the United States, and this is what messed up that health care bill, this is what messed up the budget, this is what is keeping 50% of Americans living near or below the poverty line. And many of these Americans are black. There's some poor white people in America too. I'll talk about that one day, but let's get back to the Indians. Okay, now, you're born, that's the difference between the caste system and the class system. Once you're born into a caste, you're locked to that caste for life, and your children are locked into that caste for life. There's no getting out of it. Okay. Now, they made a little loophole for darker skinned African appearance Indians to get out of that caste system. And this loophole was that if you had a beautiful or attractive daughter, the priests would take your daughter into the temple as they're supposed to be like Vestal virgins, nuns or something like that in the temple, but the priests are having sex with these girls. And that's the onlyest way that they could hope to get out of that caste system and have a better life. Right? And throughout the ages, other people who would enslave us were always willing to use our women, sexually. But if you touched their women, then it was a problem. Well, now in the U.S. today, 7 to 10% of all marriages are interracial marriages. The problem with that is this, that for years, and I'm talking about 3.5 decades, maybe even 4, every job I worked on, I got good jobs where maybe the company had 100 people, I might be the only black. If they had 200, they might have me and another black. Those kind of jobs. I would get somewhere where I could overhear the conversations of my white coworkers when I discovered early on the things they said behind my back most often were different than what they would dare say to me to my face. So I wanted to know what they really, really thought of us. What I found out was this, because I overheard it many times. They say that in interracial relationships, the difference between the black and the white perspective is that black people, black men, they get the white women that the white men don't want, for the most part. And that's not always true. I know, that's not 100% true. But that is pretty much the way they think and the way they feel. But the black women, once they get enough money, and the black men, once they get enough money, black with $1 million seems like he cannot sleep at night unless he's sleeping in a house in the suburbs and has Becky or Todd in bed with him. So what does that say about us? That's my point. That if you are poor or just an average run-of-the-mill person, black or white, and you get married, that doesn't affect anybody but you and your spouse and maybe your family. But if you're a high-profile black person, black upper-crust royalty, and you can marry anyone you want, and you choose to marry outside your race, that reflects badly on black people as a whole. For example, you have the Williams sisters, and then this fellow that gave the speech at this Actors Award ceremony, Jesse Williams. Now Jesse Williams, he just left his black wife of years to hook up with a white lady. The Williams sisters, Venus, she's dating a white fella, and Serena Williams, she's pregnant by a white fella and she's going to marry him. Yeah. Well, think about this. The most valuable thing that we can have is melanin-enriched people, that we are exactly that. We are enriched through melanin and evolution. And you can see that because it's like the Williams sisters, and we got there's 4 known certain black multi-billionaires in this country. The 2 wealthiest of them, the 3 wealthiest of them, all got their wealth either through sports or entertainment. Now, why are black people so good at sports and entertainment? Why can we run so fast? Why can we jump so high? Why do we have so much rhythm and coordination? Why do we have the gift of music? It can be explained in one word: evolution. Now, what is evolution? When slavery became, when they tried to make slavery a scientific issue, they said that we were inferior because we had evolved on a lower evolutionary scale. scale. That was Charles Darwin. I think it was 1859 when he wrote a book about survival of the fittest. And they had a science surrounding that called eugenics. And what eugenics said was that it was an attempt to prove that by the structure of our skull and other things that we were closer to apes and animals and further down the evolutionary scale than other people, which was the exact opposite of the truth. The truth is that we have been on this earth millions of years before any other people, bar none. Everyone knows that Africa is the cradle of civilization. So since we began our evolutionary process much earlier than other people, common sense tells you, it's undeniable, that we are further evolved up the evolutionary scale than anyone else. Because evolution is a process which specializes, refines, and perfects the human organism. Don't believe me? I wouldn't say it if I couldn't prove it. One of my favorite pastimes with my black queen is I lay in bed, I like to run my hand up and down her back to the small of her back over her beautiful black buttocks. And I've been in bed with women of all races, all ethnicities, and no one has that curvature like a black female. You know, don't have to be a rocket scientist to know this. Picasso could take a paintbrush and draw a more beautiful rear end than that rear end, which is typical of black women. How did we get like this? Even black men have it. Somebody seen Muhammad Ali one time taking a shower, and they commented on, said, "Damn, the champ got a nice ass." You know, how did we get that way? We got that way because we've been standing upright and evolving physically longer than any other people. And our bodies have been designed longer through evolution than any other people to function and move standing upright. That's why we can jump so high and run so fast, have such great rhythm and such great coordination. This melanin in our skin that makes us black, this melanin is the equivalent of what is a mobile nutrient. Now, if you know anything about horticulture, which few people do, but they're learning because marijuana is becoming legalized. If you know anything about horticulture, you know that in plants, calcium, magnesium, they're mobile nutrients. What mobile nutrients do is they take other nutrients in the body and they help them operate more efficiently. Okay. So the whole body operates more efficiently. You know, mobile nutrients in a plant and people, we're photosynthetic. That means that we take nutrients from the rays of the sun, vitamins like vitamin D, from the rays of the sun. Everybody knows that too much sun can cause sunburn and skin cancer. But that's very rare in people of African descent, melanin-enriched people. Because that melanin, which gives our skin color, it also acts as a filter. And it takes the good things that are beneficial from the sun itself and helps us utilize that in our body. That's why we were chosen for slavery in the first place, because we could handle that hot sun. Now, let's take it a step further. Plants grow at night. They develop at night. That's when they use all the things they've taken in from the sun, all the things that they've taken in from food, vitamins and minerals and nutrients. That's when it's used in the body. That's when the body grows. That's why we sleep, because those things are happening. Only thing that doesn't slow down is the mind. Our mind actually works faster while we're asleep than when we're awoke. Now, I've shown how just from the sun itself, and just from evolution itself, we have been designed in not an inferior way, but a superior way. But when the body, especially in human beings, is evolving, the mind also evolves. And we are not less intelligent than other people per capita. We produce more geniuses than any other race of people in the world. So why would we not want to protect that? Why would we not want to preserve that? I'll tell you why. Because we have the remnants of a slave mentality. We have been educated throughout slavery to believe that we are inferior. We have fallen victim to anti-black propaganda. So, what do? We attempt to validate ourselves by entering into relationships and marriages with people other than ourselves. And it's undeniable that who you marry, who you choose to be the mother or the father of your children, reflects that which you have an alliance to, because you have been trained, not educated, but trained to feel that way. What you admire, what you respect, and what you seek to emulate. So black folks, it's not racism. It's common sense. You need to start marrying black people and do this. It ain't hard as you might think it is. You get someone pregnant, marry them. Get someone pregnant, marry them. Because children develop best when they have a mother and when they have a father in the same home. One of my children said something to me that brought tears to my eyes. And he said a couple of years ago. She said, "Daddy, thank you. Thank you for holding the family together. Of all my friends, and this child, she took a challenging course in college. She did well. She graduated, and now she's working on her master's. My youngest child, she said this to me. She said, of all my friends, I'm the only one that has a mother and a father that are still together. And the family is together because you made the sacrifices." Black men. First leader of black people in the United States of America was Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass said that men who want rain without thunder and lightning, who want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters, are fools. You have to sacrifice to get what you want. You have to do certain things to achieve certain goals. And if we are ever going to be strong and prosperous as a people, what we have to do as black men and black women is ask ourselves this one question and answer it sincerely. If every black man and every black woman were like me, what kind of people would we be? That's the question. So, I'm going to stop this video here. I want everybody, please subscribe. Please hit the bell for notifications, because I'm going to go into my next video presentation and I'm going to explain this health care bill that just got passed in the House of Representatives by the Republicans, and how it relates to the budget and what that means. I'm going to tell you exactly how they pulled this one off and what it means. And what it means to us, black people and white people of modest means. Don't forget, for every poor black person in this country, there are 2 to 3 poor white people. There are 5 times as many white people in the United States right now as there are black people. And white people are getting poorer. We've been poor for a long time. So there's not a whole lot of us that can fall into impoverishment. But everyone knows the reason why Donald Trump was elected is because white people are falling into poverty. And the only way white people and black people are going to get out of poverty is if we work on this thing together. We built the wealthiest country in the world together. Black slaves, black people suffering under the iron oppression of Jim Crow-ism and mass incarceration in an age of color blindness is a myth. And white people who were tricked into believing that somehow their problems were being created by black folk. And they used that trick from the beginning of slavery. First white folks got to the shores of North America in 1610. The first black people came here and were indentured servants in 1619. And when they decided to make slavery race-based, they had to convince every white person in the United States to go along with it. There might be like 1 or 2 here and there that might have resisted. They need the masses of them. They needed the Indians. They needed everybody. But they used slavery, the president sent by slavery, of the president of exploitation, to exploit white folks too, the masses of white folks. That's why today you have that super wealthy 1% of 1% of 1% that holds more wealth than the bottom 50%. And the bottom 50% now in America are no longer leading a first world life. Most of them are leading a second world life, and if it continues on its present projection, it won't be long before all of us, black and white, and not 50%, I'm talking about 80 to 90%, will be leading a third world life. Okay, check me out in the next video coming up, part 2.